Hello, good morning. Nice to see you guys again. Hope you're doing well in your house. And I hope this week's a little more relaxing for you, hopefully, because of Semana Cultural. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure how much homework you're getting from your teachers or not. But anyway, I hope things are going well for you in your house. It's difficult for me too. It's not always easy being in the same place, being with the same people. Sometimes it can be a bit depressing. But anyway, the great thing is this is temporary. Hopefully in a couple of years we'll be able to leave the house again and give other people some hugs and go to a coffee shop and drink some coffee or have some cheese or eat a pizza. I don't know, something like that. Take a bike ride, go for a hike, go to the beach. Hopefully we can go to the beach this summer. Oh, that would be wonderful. Let's look at chapter 4 of your book. Chapter 4, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We are in chapter 4, and then we're going to be looking at some activities at the end, okay? Well, you can read with me. Read out loud with me. That would be good for you. It'd be good for your English, good for your speaking, because I can't hear you speak. So read with me at least, okay? A visit to Hyde's home. At the horror of the spectacle, the maid became unconscious. It was 2 o'clock in the morning before she gained consciousness again. The maid immediately called the police, and they came and searched the area. They found half of the cane beside the victim's body, but the other half was not there. The murderer probably took it with him when he left. The police also found a purse and a gold watch on the body, but there weren't any cards or papers except for a closed-stamped envelope in the old man's pocket. On the envelope were the name and the address of Mr. Utterson. The police took the body to the police station, and early the next morning a police inspector went to see Mr. Utterson. He gave Mr. Utterson the envelope and told him about the murder. Mr. Utterson opened the envelope and read the letter. Then he said, "I want to see the body before I say anything. This is very serious." Mr. Utterson went with the inspector to the police station. Mr. Utterson looked at the body and said immediately, "Yes, I recognize him. I'm sad to say this is Mr. Danvers Carew, one of my clients." "Mr. Danvers Carew," said the inspector, "the member of Parliament? Is it possible?" The inspector thought for a moment and then added, "Perhaps you can help us. I'll tell you everything we know." He told Mr. Utterson the maid's story. Mr. Utterson was very worried when he heard Mr. Hyde's name. Then the inspector showed Mr. Utterson the broken cane. "I recognize that cane," Utterson thought. "I gave it to Henry Jekyll many years ago." "Is this Mr. Hyde a short man?" Mr. Utterson asked the inspector. "Yes, sir," the inspector said. The maid described him as very short and very evil-looking. Well, sir," said Mr. Utterson, "if you come with me, I will take you to his house." It was about 9 o'clock in the morning when Mr. Utterson and the inspector arrived at Mr. Hyde's house. An old woman with an evil face opened the door. "Is this Mr. Hyde's house?" asked the inspector. "Yes, this is Mr. Hyde's house, but Mr. Hyde is not at home," the woman said. "He came home very late last night and stayed less than an hour and left again." "Isn't that strange?" said the inspector. "No, not at all," she answered. "Mr. Hyde's habits are irregular. He is often away from home for months, and then he suddenly returns." "Very well then. We want to see his rooms," Mr. Utterson said. "No, That's not possible. No, that's impossible. You can't come in. When the woman began. I must tell you who this person is, Mr. Utterson interrupted. This is Inspector Newcomen of Scotland Yard. Mr. Hyde is in trouble, isn't he? The woman asked. She seemed happy at the thought, and for a moment there was an evil smile on her face. The inspector looked at Mr. Utterson. He isn't a very popular person, is he? Said the inspector. Then turning to the woman, he said, Now, my good woman, please take us to his rooms. Most of the house was empty. Mr. Hyde used only a few rooms, but everything was in a mess. Now, in a mess is a state of disaster. Okay, everything all over the place, in a mess. There were clothes everywhere. Drawers were open. There were ashes in the fireplace. And the fireplace is where you have the fire to heat the house. Mr. Hyde burned papers before he left, said the inspector. Look, here's part of his checkbook in the ashes. It didn't burn completely. I can see the name of the bank. A few moments later, the inspector looked behind the door and found the other half of the broken cane. There's no doubt about it. Mr. Hyde is the murderer, said the inspector excitedly. He made two mistakes. First, he kept the cane. Secondly, he burned his checkbook. He will need to go to the bank to get money because he can't write checks now. We'll wait for him there. It will be easy to catch him. But Inspector Newcomen was wrong. The police went to the bank and waited there for a few days, but they didn't catch Hyde. He didn't come to the bank. After Mr. Utterson and Inspector Newcomen parted, Mr. Utterson went to visit Dr. Jekyll. Poole opened the door, and Mr. Utterson went into the house. But instead of taking him to the library like he usually did, Poole took Mr. Utterson to Dr. Jekyll's laboratory on the other side of the courtyard. It was Mr. Utterson's first time in the laboratory, and he looked at everything with curiosity. Dr. Jekyll was interested in chemistry, and the laboratory was full of tables with chemical apparatus and instruments on them. On the floor there were many big boxes, and from the laboratory, Poole took Mr. Utterson upstairs to Dr. Jekyll's room. It was a big room with cupboards full of chemicals, an oval mirror in the corner, and Dr. Jekyll's desk. The three windows were closed and had a view of the courtyard. There was a fire in the fireplace and a lamp on the table beside it. Dr. Jekyll was sitting in an armchair near the fire, and he looked very ill. Okay, so that's chapter 4. Okay, now what I want you to do activities 3 and 4 and place them in the comment section of this video on YouTube. Okay? For example, according to Poole, Dr. Jekyll gave Mr. Hyde what? A gold watch on the body, big box in the laboratory, could get rid of him, the key to the laboratory, was a member of Parliament. Well, according to Poole, Dr. Jekyll gave Mr. Hyde the key to the laboratory. I gave you a free answer. Okay, and then number 4, these are open-ended questions, so you need to write at least one sentence for every question. Okay? For example, what instructions did Dr. Jekyll give to Mr. Utterson? What instructions did he give to him? You need to tell me what instructions Mr. Utterson received from Dr. Jekyll. Okay? Clear? And then do the same thing with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all in the comment sections below this video. And you guys have a fantastic week. Okay? And pretty soon it's Semana Santa and you can have a little bit of a holiday. Okay? So enjoy it. Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye.